The last, I would say, 10 years or so, I've really let myself think of pleasure and desire as just like really shifting in their relationship to faith and their relationship to faithfulness, actually. Some of you have heard me talk about this already, but the religious tradition that I was in, and also perhaps more importantly, the way I was interpreting the religious worlds that I was in, even with or without anyone like explicitly saying this stuff to me. But what I took in was a lot of like, the things you want are bad. Like, if you want it, it's bad, actually. And if you desire it, it's probably bad, probably sinful. And like you might go to hell, actually, if you give in to your desires. And that made it really difficult to figure out when I wanted something that I should go after and when I wanted something that I should suppress. And it even went so far in my patterning to turn into this feeling of like, if I'm miserable, I must be doing something right. And the right part was really important. It was like right versus wrong. And something shifted in me because it had to. Because I got to a point where I was so miserable that I just was like, well, I don't think I just like can't go on this way. And so I thought, I'm just going to have to give up everything. I'm going to have to risk hell, like I have been operating all this time with this assumption that like feeling miserable, being sort of in pain, being unhappy, being uncomfortable, denying my desires, denying any pleasure, all that was good. And then I just got to a breaking point where it felt like, okay, well, whether it's good or bad, it kind of doesn't matter because I can't do this anymore. And that was when, really my life fell apart, and it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I remember talking with a friend of mine in the moment when I was getting divorced. I had, in some ways it felt like I had just ruined everything. Like I had had an affair, and I was leaving my marriage, and I was leaving the church, and I was in so much trouble. I was just in trouble, and that feeling for the good girl of being in trouble, it was like I didn't even know how to process it. This was now like a point where I was pushing the limit, and it wasn't clear if I'd be able to come back. And friends who had been like, we were with you, but this is too far. Even though they knew, not everyone, but some of them knew what had been going on between me and my ex-husband. They knew that we weren't having sex at all. They knew that we weren't connected at all. We had followed all the rules, and then it hadn't worked for us. They knew how miserable I was. I was in a lot of pain. I was in so much doubt. And when I broke that big rule and was really going to leave, it felt more like I had suddenly put myself back into like the witch trial times or the Scarlet Letter or something, where it was just like, it doesn't matter what he's done. It doesn't matter what your dynamic with him is. All that matters is that you broke a bigger rule. And I remember this conversation so vividly that I had with my Bible study at the time, where they were like, what you're doing now, like the devil's making you do it. It's not funny. In the moment it was like so traumatizing. These were like my best friends. Luckily, I was so resourced with like deep, good, true friends who were like, sure, whatever, this is complicated, but like we're with you and we will kind of like see you through this. Some of them are watching right now. And I was so supported, and it was a moment that revealed like just how dangerous it is for us to break the rules. and how much I had been afraid of hell and afraid of being bad and afraid of ruining everything. And I remember this feeling of like, you know, people think that if you follow your desires, it'll cost you. It'll cost you everything. And the reality is that sometimes that is true. But I do think I look back and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I was afraid of something happening. I was afraid of hell. I was afraid of being condemned, and I was. And like, I actually think I needed that. You know, there's no way I would be doing what I'm doing now. And I also don't think I would have ever started to really connect to God like the way that I am now. I'm like, here, I'm messy, I'm real, and I'm like co-creating with what feels divine. And it's where my work has come into play, where I'm able to like communicate honestly about what's going on. I've found that pleasure and desire, rather than being tools that lead you to hell, are actually what helps you create heaven and feeling like you're at home in the world and in your body and in yourself.